YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. We are live. When I say good morning, that's good morning to those in Perth, where it is exactly 5 a.m. and it is 8 a.m. in Melbourne and Sydney, 6:30 a.m. in Adelaide, 7:30 a.m. in Adelaide. And if we jump across to Europe, where I think most of you will be located, we are in Amsterdam, 11 p.m. No, 10 p.m., 9 p.m. in London, 4 p.m. in New York, and 1 p.m. in Los Angeles. So if you have a question you'd like answered, I want you to jump on straight away to YouTube. Here we are getting some hellos. Good evening, Kym, says Aman Chaudhry. Hope I pronounced your name right. So there's a bit going on in the studio this morning. Tyler, my son, is sitting on the floor. I have Adrian. Good morning, Adrian, sitting over in the back blocks there.
Good morning.
It is 5 a.m. and thank you for getting up at 4 to come in. 3 p.m. says somebody. Oh, and lovely Alona's with us again. And remember, we're giving away a download of the photograph of your choice on my prostarpics.com page for anybody who fields a question using Super Chat. So jump onto Super Chat, excuse me, and let's hear your questions. While we're waiting for questions to come through, I might just tell you quickly a little bit about Barcelona testing, because it comes up shortly, and it runs over 2 3-day periods. The first is from the 19th to the 21st of February, and bang, look at those. Questions pop up there very quickly. So if you want to go to the ahead of the queue, jump onto Super Chat. So there's 19th to the 21st, that's 3 days, and then we get 4 days off, and then there are another 3 days after that. Teams don't have typically both cars. They have one car, and they have one driver do 3 days normally, and another driver do the other 3. I think all of the drivers will do testing, probably not Lewis. Who else? Seb does it, everyone does it. So yeah, it's normally only Lewis that hasn't done it, but maybe he will. And I haven't seen a list of drivers who are doing it this year, but it's always an entertaining few days. And what I like about it is the fact that you get this great access to the drivers, you get very close to them, and it's just great fun. So get onto Super Chat, as Alona has done. Great to see you live again. How is your break so far? My break has been great. I am bored. I am very keen to get back to shooting Formula One. We do get some great afternoon light when we shoot testing. For instance, here, if I go to this particular shot here, have a look at that lovely light in the middle, late in the afternoon. And for Instagram people, if you want to ask a question, you need to go to YouTube, because I just cannot see your questions on the back there, and you will be answered if you go to YouTube. Good morning from Canada, Stephen. Good morning, Canada. Of course, you've got 2 drivers this year in Formula One with Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll. You are well represented with 10% of the drivers. Kelly Arnold, favourite driver. I really got on well with Nico last year, because I had a great relationship with him, and my photos of him were hilarious many times. But of course, he's not there this year. So I like shooting Charles. I love shooting Daniel. Pierre's great as well. But maybe this year I'll get some new connections with other drivers and broaden that reach, because I think if you look at my Instagram page, very strong for Lando. Oh, of course, Lando, yeah. Lando, Charles, Daniel, probably my top 3, and Seb, Pierre go well. But what I'm looking for is to get equal representation from all drivers, but that's probably not going to happen. Do you think Red Bull stands a chance against Mercedes this year? Look, you probably know more than I do on the actual mechanical side and the racing side of things. I won't even pass comment, because I don't want to embarrass myself. How long have you been doing this? So I've been doing this for 3 full seasons, and I started out actually by going to Abu Dhabi in 2016. I went as a guest of Red Bull and went in the paddock with them, and in the pit lane and in the garage, and thoroughly loved it. And that's when I thought, right, I wouldn't mind doing this, and made the right noises and got the right people excited about what I could do. And here we are, 3 years later, enjoying Formula One and reveling in it, quite frankly. Caitlin Perry, have you ever thought about photographing the city and stuff when you go to a country? Yeah, look, I do, but quite frankly, we just get very little time. Normally we arrive in on a Wednesday afternoon. I'll go to the track if I get time, and then Thursday it's 12 to 14 hours at the track, Friday the same, Saturday the same, Sunday the same, and then Sunday night sometimes we fly out. So there is very little extra time, except for things like the European break when we get, the season when we get going. We have 5 races in 7 weeks, in which case there's an opportunity there to spend some time. If you want to get your question to the head of the queue, remember to hit that super chat button, and at the end of the live stream this evening if you're in Europe, is somebody's going to get himself a ProStar Picks download. Spin a wheel at the end, and the boys have done some clever stuff, so don't miss out on that. Do you believe Lewis can pass the record of Schumacher? Yeah, I think he can. He's certainly not showing any signs of becoming any less of a driver. He's quite brilliant, rarely makes a mistake. And I think if I were Mercedes, I'd be very keen to keep him there next year, because the last thing I think they want is for him to end up going to Ferrari, which is perhaps on the cards, as is perhaps Daniel Ricciardo going there and taking Seb's seat, if that's what's going to happen at the end of the year. I don't think they'll be taking Charles' seat, that's for sure. What race do you look forward to most, and which is the best for good shots? I'll probably look forward to Melbourne because it's getting back into it. But as for photographic-wise, Melbourne, no, I don't like it. I think it's too much wire around it. Both sides of the track, wire fencing. And in fact, somebody did ask a question or made a comment the other day on a post I put up about track walks on Instagram. And hello to the Instagram people up the back there. You need to go to YouTube if you want your question answered, because I can see your questions up the back there, but I just can't read them from this distance. And they said, well, Daniel doesn't do a track walk. That would have saved him last year when he had his big crash on lap 1. Well, no, it wouldn't, because typically the drivers come out of the pit lane, they walk in the direction that they race in, and then they come back into the pit lane. So they don't actually walk the section of the track where Daniel had his accident, which was just after the start line. So had he have done the had he have done the track walk, he wouldn't have passed that particular section of track where he had the accident at the start of last year's race. Lewis Sendel, do F1 pay for you to be there? No, I'm a freelancer. I struggle to see how you can make this profitable with flights and hotels. Don't worry about that. No, F1 don't pay for anyone to be there unless you shoot for F1, and they would have contracts with certain photographers, and teams have contracts with certain photographers. But as a freelancer, we work with lots of different organisations, or I do anyway, and there's a number of other freelancers who do the same. Driver with the worst personality today. I'm not answering that. That's that can win you no friends, I'm afraid. Which one shall I pick now? If you want to get to the head of the queue, and it looks like we're going all right. Adrian, how many people are on here? Can we tell?
43. Yep, we've got about 150 people here at the moment.
Well, Cam F1's there. We've got Seb. I wonder if that's Seb. Probably not the Seb that I'm talking about. Do you only shoot F1 drivers and team members, or F2 and 3? I have actually shot F2 and 3 for a couple of clients. A lovely Dutch client of mine who has asked me to go and shoot some F2 drivers, in particular Kym Illman. I'm trying to think of the young Max Fewings. Is that his name? Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I do occasionally shoot them. But unfortunately, when their races are on, it normally coincides with either me needing to be in the paddock or me needing to edit. So it's just unfortunately not convenient to go out and shoot them. And they don't have much presence in our paddock. Often they have their own paddock, which is a way away from the F1 paddock, and we just don't see them that often. I'm going to pick Sick Bale, talking about colours and how they're linked to pictures perception. Do you think Ferrari's Rosso Corsa Racing Red has more appeal than other colours? Yes, I do. Photographically, I love shooting the Ferrari. Let's have a look at a picture. Let's find you one here. Ferrari, and I have many of them. Let's find a picture. But yes, it is photographically a lovely thing to shoot. Here we go. Let's have a look at this pic here. Bang. There we go. So that shot there, it's a rich red, and that's the matte red of Charles's car. And I think certainly it is a better option shooting for me than, say, the Mercedes, because if you go to a Mercedes, it tends to be a little bit dull, especially when you're shooting a Mercedes from the back. It's got nothing on it, although you do get some nice reflections. Here's a reflection shot from above where you expose for this section here being nice and bright and visible, and everything else is rendered dark. So remember, if you want to get your question up to the top of the list, go and click the Super Chat button, and we'll... Max Futrell, I beg your pardon, is F3, but the other two drive... Oh, Lewis Delatraz, of course, Alona. Thank you very much, Alona, with the smiley face. We Score Animations. Have you thought about shooting a historic Grand Prix somewhere? I am aware that the Monaco Historic Grand Prix, I believe, takes place a week before the F1 Grand Prix, but I'm not sure whether that clashes with another race. So, unfortunately, with 22 races per year, there's not too many weekends there's not a race, and at some point, you just have to say enough is enough. What do you expect from Vietnam this April, says Dimas. Wow, I expect it to be hot. I expect every photographer to be on the same level because nobody will have shot it before, and that's a great thing. And I think the hotel accommodation looks good from what I've seen. It's not too far out of town. It's not a huge hike. And look, I'm looking forward to it. It's a new destination. And who doesn't love going somewhere new? And I've never been there before. Well, lots and lots of questions. But if you want your question to be seen, hit the Super Chat button. Otherwise, it's potluck as to whether or not you will get your question seen. And, of course, everybody who goes in that Super Chat or click Super Chat goes in the draw to win a lovely picture from ProStarPics.com as we come live to you from Perth, Australia, where it is dark this morning. Actually, the sun's coming up. It's just after 5 a.m. Do you look forward to Zandvoort? Yes, I do, and that looks like a Dutch name. J. van Steen, have I pronounced that correctly? Do you intentionally overexpose or underexpose, depending on the vision of a shot? Yes. So you look at a shot and think, right, I want to expose for, let's go back to this shot here. I want to expose for this section here, and if I actually... Pardon?
The bridge shot. You know, when I pass under the bridge.
Yes, Tyler is telling me to have a look at this shot. So if I go back to D here and I bump this up, see now you can see details in the tyres down here, but everything else is washed out. At some point you have to make a choice as to what you are exposing for. And if I go to Monaco Bridge, no, it's not the bridge, you're talking the tunnel, Tyler.
They go under a bridge.
Oh, okay, yes, that's
Yeah,
Japan.
Yeah,
Japan.
Nice white shot.
Right. This is a classic example where the cars go underneath the... let me just jump off that back to me. The cars go underneath the flyover in Japan, and fortunately, searching and talking are not my strong points at the same time, but given that this computer is under a bit of pressure at the moment doing both, it takes me a second or so, and you have to decide whether you want to make the car exposed for the car or the shadows. So come on, here it is, worth the wait, people. Thank you very much. Right, so that is the shot itself. Thinking about it, this is underneath the bridge, so it's very dark. As you can see here, I've exposed for this section. You can see detail here, but everything before and after the car, which is out in the bright sunshine, is in fact in overexposed. Daniel Morris. Hey, Kym. That's me. Because you're Australian, does that mean you get to work a bit closer with Daniel Ricciardo? Great content, by the way. Thank you to Daniel. I don't get to work closely with him. I see him, and obviously we speak the same language and dialect of that language, but it's not like all Australians conglomerate together and have an Australian party. But certainly I know Daniel to talk to, and he would know me, and I'm friends of his parents. And yeah, we're both from Perth. He went to the same school as Tyler down here, went to Newman High School. So thank you, Daniel. Where are you from? Tell us where you are from, and thank you for going in the super chat, because now you have an opportunity to win a download from ProStar Picks at the end of this live stream. And those people on Instagram up back there, if you want your question answered, please come to YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Kym Illman. Palmamont is from Chile, where it's 6:14 in the evening. Thank you for coming to us from Chile. Do you think Daniel Morris is our hero, says Racing Geek? Well, that's nice to know. Peter Pippix. I don't mean to be insensitive, but I was wondering who you're working for. I work for you. And I have some contracts with drivers. And, well, don't worry about who I'm working for. That's none of your, don't lose any sleep over that. Dan Curtis, love your photos. Slowly getting into motorsport photography myself, starting with WEC, British Touring Car Championship F4. Would you ever consider moving to a mirrorless system such as Sony? No, because I've not tried one, and I'm just about to get a brand new 1DX Mark III. So I think I should probably stay with that for a while, given the fact that they cost about what you would get a small car for. But now I'll go with that, and I like it. And I've got lenses. That would be a horrible thing to have to go and buy new lenses, if indeed that was an issue. If you want your question to jump to the top of the queue here, and unfortunately, as you can see, I'm probably missing about 90% of your questions. So use Super Chat, and it's a bit like getting to the front of the queue at Disneyland, jumping the queue. Alona, what is a good starter's photo camera? I want to try making photos myself during the 3 races, but the 1D Mark II camera is expensive. I've got actually a couple of 1D Mark Is second hand for sale. If you get onto my Instagram page, I put a post up there. Look, I would go with, I can't tell you what's current at the moment, and I can only tell you what Canon I've got, but I like the 7D. That was a good entry-level camera. And you'd probably get a 100 to 400mm Canon lens. And then if you shoot Nikon, or Nikon, you'd probably go with whatever their equivalent is. But they are good entry-level cameras. And something like a 7D, you can get into second-hand for under probably 500-600 euros, I think. I stand to be corrected, but yeah. And then you need to do a lot of practice, a lot of panning. And I'm often asked, well, how do you practice F1 if you only get 20 races a year? Well, you get down the freeway and you actually pan with cars and see how sharp you can get them at the lower shutter speeds. It's a tricky game. From Nairobi, Kenya. I've been to Nairobi a number of times. What other motorsport competition do you like, says Brian Davies from Nairobi. What do I like? Look, I really only love F1. I haven't seen much Formula E, although there are a couple of guys who shoot F1 that also shoot Formula E. I think it'd be much nicer on the E as Formula E, but no, look, I don't know much about British Touring Car Championship. I don't know much about DTM or the Australian V8s, but I'll go with F1 for the moment. Frizzo, your favourite track overall? Monaco. Monaco, because of its photographic value for me. It's just so beautiful. I've got shots that I know that I can get. And it's so close. You can get to all parts of the track with very little effort. And sometimes, if you go to the French track in La Castellet, that's a real drama to get to the other end of the track. That's going to take you some time, as does the journey involved in getting to the other end of the track in Baku. That is a real nightmare. Daniel Morris, hey Kym from Sydney, Australia, looking forward to Melbourne GP and making it to your dinner event. Yes, you should come, Daniel, because we are at the Prahran restaurant, The Smith. It's only about 15 minutes, if it's that, from the track. It's on the Saturday night, and it's $240. You can get a free print involved with that. And we talk for a couple of hours F1. I'll give you a bit more detail that I'd be perhaps keen to share with you on this format, so it's a bit more intimate. And there's only, I think, 16 guests at the table. So you get to ask lots of questions, and I'll run through some of my images here. And it's a great event, so come along. You can book online at kymillman.com. Which one shall I pick here? Of course, if you want to go to the head of the queue, you just click on that super chat. What do you think about Seb not... Oh, I missed... Where'd that one go? What did you think about Seb not being on social media? He's fine. He doesn't want to be on it. He doesn't have to be on it. But he's still... Look, he has access to Instagram. I know that because he found some information for me recently in the paddock last year. So he's obviously got access to it. He just doesn't care to have his life plastered all over it. He's perhaps not as needy or doesn't need that exposure. Thank you to Alex Routledge. Where are you from, Alex? There's no little flag there. What is your favourite scarf that you own? You seem to own so many pretty cool ones. Fantastic content. Thank you. Well, look, I'll be honest with you. This one's not a bad one. This one's La Martina. Now, I think that's an Argentinian brand, but look, I'll be honest. Most of them are my wives, and I did the first couple of videos with a scarf, and then my general manager here, Kiralee Davies, at the company I own in Perth, which is Messages on Hold Australia. You go to messagesonhold.com.au, and it's a company that I own and have been in business with this company for 31 years now. She said, you now have to have a scarf in every video, and I did one where I didn't have a scarf, and she admonished me for it, lambasted me or told me off for it. So now I have to have a scarf, but I do like some of those bright Louis Vuitton ones, but some people don't like them. But you know what? It's my video. I'll wear what I want. But thank you very much, Alex, for noticing. I appreciate that. Hello from Norway, and Kristen, Norway, where it's quite cold, I imagine, at this time of year, and probably very short days. Jump onto Super Chat if you want to jump the queue too. Are you excited about Drive to Survive? And those people who are watching this with lesser audio quality on Instagram, up the very back there, please jump over to YouTube where you'll enjoy the audio quality and you'll get a much better shot, and I'll be able to see your question. Yeah, I can't wait for Drive to Survive. It is fantastic. It has, last year when it came out, I watched them all in a day. Unfortunately, this year it comes out on February 28, and I think I'll be flying back from testing on the 28th. But as soon as I land, or as soon as I have access to the internet or Netflix, I'll be watching Drive to Survive. It's been my favourite thing, I think, in F1. Tambuli. From the US, I think. Thanks for all this wonderful F1 content. I recently got into the sport, and your channel has been a great source for all my F1 needs. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? It's lucky I have a bit of time to spend on this because, as you can probably imagine, Tambuli, and I'd like to know what state you're from. Maybe I'm going there this year. It takes a heck of a lot of time, and the videos that I put up, and I've got one going up in the next 4 days, about the families of F1 drivers. So I've picked 5 drivers, and I think I've got Lewis, Lando, Daniel, Pierre, and one more. And I talk about their families, but they take sometimes forever to produce. But you never get to see the drama that goes on in the production of those things. You just see the end product. So thank you very much for watching them, and that's obviously where a lot of you have found this. So Tambuli, thanks for jumping the queue with your live Super Chat question. I've got another one over here. I can read it over here. Hey, from Motorsports Photo, are you going to mirrorless camera this season? No, I'm not. I'm sticking with my Nikon D4s, but the weight of mirrorless is amazing. All right, well, it appears that there's a bit of a movement to mirrorless, but I think I've only seen one other photographer of any note at F1 with a mirrorless, and I don't think they use it all the time. I do know a couple of the guys from, well, one in particular from XPB, which is a very good collection of 4 photographers who shoot for a couple of teams. They've got at least one because they want to use it for like holding over the top of the car and shooting down and seeing the shot on the pull-out screen, which is an invaluable thing. But at this stage, no, I will stick with the new Canon 1DX Mark III, which shoots at 20 frames a second in live view mode, which is a fair effort, and 16 a second in optical view. Pardon me. Marcus Andre Rasmussen, I'm going to guess that is a Dutch name. And I can also see the currency. So I gather you're... Oh no, we've done that. We've done that. Mirrorless camera. Did I mention his name? Excuse me, having a drink. You got anything to report, Adrian? How's it going back there? Adrian's in the back blocks.
Yes, I'm back here. Always watching, always keeping an eye on how it's going. It's going well.
You're in the
Thank you very much
dark.
for coming out.
You're in the dark.
It's where I prefer to be. You're the man in the light.
I can't even swing the camera around and show you him. We can't even do it on Instagram. Hello to Instagram people. Please jump onto YouTube if you're wanting to actually see what's going on. And we have a question here on Super Chat. We should have a little sting. Do they get a sting? SJEX D. Hi Kym, do you have any advice for editing photos? Would love to hang one of your photos on my wall. From Holland. Okay, now 10% of my Instagram audience is from Holland, and that's a small country, and yet so many people love F1. Of course, the Zandvoort race has been horribly oversubscribed. 1 in 10 people got tickets. So in answer to various parts of your question, editing photos, I can tell you that I've done a couple of videos on my channel. I'd urge you to watch them on how I edit quickly. I use Photo Mechanic and Lightroom, and I've actually got 15 presets that you can go to, and there's a little super on my screen that pops up every 8 minutes, and they're hardly any money at all. But the one I use the most is a thing called Turbo, and if I don't know whether I can do this. I don't get much time to edit photos when I'm at the track. So typically what I'll do is use one preset. So if I go over here and show you my pictures from, let's go to last race because that's easy to find. And I'll go to that shot, if I can find it, of the cars coming over the crest, coming out of the paddock. You're seeing, no, I'll just go to any picture I want here. So live with me for a second. This computer is having to do the stuff that you're seeing as well as the stuff that I'm outputting. So this particular photo, if I go back, can I see the original? Before, no. Down the side here, this is the one I use the most. It says Turbo. It's 1 of 15 in the preset package, and you just press a button, and it normally makes it pop. Not for every shot. About half of my shots it works on, but there's a whole lot of others. What else did you have in that question? I would love to hang one of your photos on my wall. You should do that and go to prostarpics.com where you can purchase the digital image and get it printed in your home country for personal use. You can't sell it or anything, but yes, for personal use, it's fantastic. And I have had several people buy them and do whole walls. They need actually a higher version that I put on ProStar Pics, so they come to me direct. But they've printed, what is that, 3 meters high and maybe 4.5 meters wide. And they look fantastic. And a couple of people have sent me photos, and I think I wish I had a wall that large that I could go and populate with one of my pictures. And I'd probably choose my favourite picture from Daniel Ricciardo coming onto the grid last year at Hockenheim with the spray coming off his tyres. Right, let's jump ahead. Super Chat gets you to the top of the queue if you want to ask a question straight away. And we have been going for 27 minutes. MGK0802, I'm from Holland. Well done to you. Hi, Kym, I'm a 50... Oh, that just disappeared, that one. Sorry. We can't use Super Chat in Turkey. Not available. What's your all-time favourite livery? Well, I can really only talk because I've only photographed F1 for 3 years. Oh, I was going to go with Ferrari. I just love the rich red. Alona from Holland. What will your next YouTube video be about? Crazy fans from Holland. A whole video on Holland fans. No, it will be on the families behind 5 drivers. And it's just mainly a little introduction to, here are the people, here's what they look like, and a little bit of background. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. No, you didn't do it, Tyler. That's what we wanted to do. Now I'm full screen. What do you think of Charles's own grandstand in Monaco and France? Wow, he's a big name, and that's great. And I noticed, I had a look at the promotion. If you book Charles's grandstand, you get a whole lot of extras. I think there's caps and there's sign stuff. He's going to be signing for days to fulfill all those wishes of those people. So well done if you're in that grandstand. You're obviously a Charles fan. I imagine they'll all look similar. But we're getting lots and lots of questions and many multi-line questions now. So if you want to jump that queue, hit the Super Chat button. Otherwise, I'll pick Cassidy Charrett, which race has the best media facilities? I worked in press services at the Canadian GP last year. I'm curious to see what you thought of the media centre upgrade. Well, I'd love to tell you, but I didn't go to Canada last year, and I don't think I went the year before either. I went the first year when I did all races, but Canada is it's a bastard of a race to get to if you're coming from Perth, especially when it's a standalone event. But this year, luckily, it's back-to-back with Azerbaijan, and I get to fly from Azerbaijan to New York, and then I'll probably I might even make it up by road to Canada. But yeah, I saw some pictures, and the previous press centre was pretty bloody ordinary. It was a platform over the river, or over that rowing lake, and it squeaked and it creaked when you walked on the thing. It was a bit like Melbourne, just a tacky put together piece of media stuff. So if there's a new one, and I imagine it's pretty flash, something like China's great, Abu Dhabi's great. We use the Hilton Ballroom in Azerbaijan. It's a bit of a hike to get to the paddock though. So yeah, we do get some good ones. Dan, the Indoor Man DGC from England. Hamilton to Red Bull, not Ferrari. Yeah. I don't know. I do know that he always says he has to have a chat with Ferrari when he comes up to contract negotiations, just to keep Mercedes honest. And look, he may like that challenge of going to either Red Bull or Ferrari to perhaps put a bit of spice back into his racing and giving him a challenge. Who knows? But he is a big name, and he's still got plenty of years left in him. So I think about 2/3 of the way through this year, it should be pretty exciting when they start jockeying for position. And as you know, last year with Esteban Ocon, he missed out because Daniel Ricciardo surprised everybody, and that had a knock-on effect. Super Chat gets you to the top of the queue, and of course, all those people on the left here of my screen who've popped in a couple of dollars to ask their question and jump the queue have now a chance of winning a ProStar Picks digital download at the end of this session. I've answered that Drive to Survive one, so I won't go there. Which driver is the hardest to take a picture? Lewis. He's very hard to find. He comes in late most days. Like the earliest drivers are normally Charles or George. Not all the time, but certainly I know that if you want to get them, you've got to be out there early. And he and Kimmy are probably one of the last two to arrive each day. He sometimes goes in tricky entrances, and the latest video I just put up, I think I mentioned that. Yeah, he is very hard to photograph, and oftentimes he'll look away. If there's 30 photographers straight in front of him, he'll look away, look up at the sky. You've got to be lucky, and you have to be patient above all, because sometimes you'll sit and invest 30, 45 minutes waiting for a Lewis shot. But of course, there are a couple of options where you can always get him coming out of the hospitality suite and heading to the garage, and of course at the end of the session going back. But they are short walks, and you know exactly when he's going to come out of either of those facilities to get somewhere else. Those people on Instagram, please come to YouTube. You're getting a wide shot and not very good audio because you are 2 meters away from me, whereas you can't see it, but just up here there's a microphone. There it is. And just out of shot. So those people on Instagram, please come to YouTube. And Timothy from Switzerland. I love Switzerland. My God, how do you afford to eat in Switzerland? It's so expensive for us. How long does it take you to get used to a new camera? Well, thankfully not very long, because if you go from Canon, as I've done 1DX Mark 1, 2 and 3, the Mark 1 to Mark 2, there's a few extra settings, but everything else is pretty much the same. All of the menus are the same with added extras, and it's just a matter of getting to grips. But I have a couple of friends in F1 photographers, and one is Clive Mason from Getty, brilliant photographer, and he went from Canon to Nikon. Now, I can't imagine how tricky that is, because I know that a lot of the things are completely reversed, and then there's whole new menus. I imagine he had to do a bit of study before he became au fait with how to work them. Super Chat gets you to the head of the queue. Come to my presentation in Melbourne. It's my dinner on the Saturday night of the GP. It's going to be a great night. Still got 6 seats left, and we'd love you there. Which driver likes their picture taken the most, or is the most cooperative? Well, I'm sure any photographer that has a relationship with the driver would say that driver likes their picture being taken because you have that relationship. So I've got good relationships with Lando, Pierre, Daniel, Nico had a great relationship with, and a few others. So those photographers will normally be better for me to photograph. Of course, I don't know Lance Stroll very well, or maybe even Checo Perez, so you wouldn't expect for them to be looking at my lens or considering me if there's 10 photographers in a group. How do you think net carbon zero F1 will look? I've got to tell you, and thank you for your question, Antonio, I have no idea. I'll be upfront and honest with you there. How do you deal with the time changes when flying from race to race? Never a problem. Never. I normally, if I go from Australia to Europe, I'll get in on a Wednesday afternoon and have a good night's sleep, and then Thursday I'm away. More so, I have a problem coming back to Australia, particularly from somewhere like America where it's a big time difference, and Europe, I guess. So more so when I get back here. But thank you for asking. How many GPs have I been to, says Marisha from Poland. I've never been to Poland. I would like to go. Got some good friends from Poland, though. I have been to, I did 20 races in the first year. I did 17 in the second, and I did 20 last year, so add them up. And you'll get your answer, and I've just gone and made them very, very cloudy, these glasses now. What have I got? Hey, Kym, Brandon from Ireland. Top of the morning to you. What team liveries are you most looking forward to seeing shooting in the paddock this year? Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing something exciting at testing in Barcelona. Hopefully, one of the teams or a couple of the teams have something special there. But otherwise, no, I've got nothing to look forward to in that respect. Melbourne I'm looking forward to just for the fact of getting back into shooting. And I do like Melbourne because it's my home race. It's only a 3-hour flight to get there. And I stay with family, so there's very little cost involved for this race. And it's normally nice weather, although they did have rain last year on one particular day, which was interesting photographically. So thank you for your question. Have you ever witnessed that a photographer gets hurt when a car crashes? Thank you from Benjamin Tesch from Deutschland. Guten Abend in Deutschland. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch, nur ein bisschen. Ich hatte 5 Jahre Deutsch gelernt in der Schule. And yeah, I know enough to get around. I've forgotten the question now. What was the question? What was it?
Seen anyone get hurt?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen anyone get hurt, thankfully. I do happen to know an interesting story of a good friend of mine, Mark Thompson from Getty Images. I asked him that same question. He said, no, never been injured with F1, although he was photographing motorcycle racing many years ago. And he said a bike came over the fence and knocked his cap off. Now, that is an amazing story, and I imagine he probably shit himself when that happened. So nothing untoward yet, and I hope that stays the same. Super Chat gets you to the top of the list, and I must apologise because I'm only seeing very few of your questions. And of course, if you go to Super Chat, you have a chance of winning a ProStar Picks download from my website. Hey Kym, what's the time down under right now? Well, it's a big country, but where I am, it's 21 minutes to 6 a.m. And in Melbourne, it'll be 21 minutes to 9 a.m. Gothenburg, Sweden, haven't been there either. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be? I'd be right here in Perth, I think. Although Perth is a very windy city, and I do love the south of France because there's not much wind there, and the water is smooth. And that's something I really notice when I head away from Perth, that a lot of the places I go to have no wind. These places have no wind. And I do adore that. What do you think of ex-Manchester United player Ashley Young joining Ferrari in 2021? No idea. Is that even a joke? I don't know. You tell me. Why do you wear your unique hat? I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to get sunburnt or sun cancer. That's one thing. And then I need a hat that doesn't have a brim, because as soon as you got a camera now, as soon as you put a camera up, like that, oftentimes you bang the camera against the peak of your cap, and that's no fun at all. And of course, when you turn the camera sideways and shoot in portrait mode, it's just absolutely impossible. And then it's got to be a cap that fits reasonably, or a hat that fits reasonably tightly, because you don't want it blowing off when you're on the track and say standing trackside and your hat blows off on a windy day and ends up on the track, because you just end up on the news and you're getting all sorts of strife for that. That's why I wear it. Certainly not for any fashion reason, I can promise you that. But of course, if you're a hat manufacturer and you've got something you think I should be wearing, I'm always happy to look at collaborations. Same with Instagram, because I think we've got 80,700 and something followers on Instagram and 24,500 odd on YouTube, which is where you're watching this. Those Instagram people, please come to YouTube, where you can get your questions answered, and you'll get better audio as well, because you're some 2 meters away from where I am. My name is George. I was wondering how you got into F1 photography. I should just do a video on this because it's such a common question. Well, I went to Abu Dhabi for testing in 2016. I love what I saw, and I got the bug because I was standing down in the garage in pit lane, listening to Daniel Ricciardo on his headphones, on his microphone, talking to the team, and it was very quiet. There was this lovely aura about the whole thing, and I'm seeing what I'm listening to right in front of me, and I thought, I'd like to shoot that. So I applied to for accreditation and put my case forward as to what I could do for the sport, and was lucky enough to get accredited. And then I've done 57 races, I think, roughly, since then, and another 22 this year, which should be pretty exciting. Thank you to Alona and Dan, the indoor man, and Marcus and Alex for your super chat questions. You go into the draw to win a prize today. Who else? Being from Perth, did you know Daniel Ricciardo while he was growing up? No, I wasn't aware of Daniel until I started following F1 perhaps a little bit more closely, going back about 4 or 5 years ago. And of course, there was a bit of press about Daniel being from Perth. And I thought, well, yeah, I should follow him if I'm going to follow anyone. He's an Australian. Favourite F1 helmet design? I liked this one from last year. Let me see if I can find it. And I'm almost certain I can. Yeah, this one here. Bang. That one. Lando Norris's. Now, he is very hands-on with his helmet design. A lot of drivers, I think, probably just leave it to their designer, but Lando does a lot more than that. He gets very hands-on with it, and this is his now departed race engineer, Mr. Javo, and this was his tribute to Javo for his last race. Me shoes, and he did tell me that story, and I've since forgotten it, but yeah, I like that particular helmet. I like Daniel's too. I think this is an interesting design. It's a matte finish, and it was all about Daniel being different. Don't be like the rest of them. Go the opposite way. If they're zigging, you zag. Who else have I got in here? My helmets. Oh, this is interesting too. And I don't know whether you picked this up on television. This little thing here, see what I'm pointing to here? This is a wind assistance thing to, I imagine, stop wind getting up underneath the helmet and pushing it back. So it puts some downforce on it. And you can also see it on this particular helmet here. They're different designs, but they do look great. They look interesting. And what else have I got here? Is that Kimmy's? No, this is Daniel's here back. And Daniel used to always do on the back of his helmet a little honey badger thing or some sort of special mention. So that's the helmet question. I am actually getting a very interesting lens for this year. It's a Laowa 24mm probe lens. It's very interesting because it allows you to do shots. Now, can I remember what this shot was? Nico earpiece. Will that find it? Look, I won't waste your time. You're busy people. But this lens allows me to shoot that far away. I can get right up someone's eye. I can stick the lens in somebody's shoe. It's that small because its diameter is that not very wide. Alona from Holland, how was it to shoot the race and the minute's silence after the horrible accident at Spa? It was a very moving day, and the night before I do remember driving out of the track because we were all talking about it in the media centre, and as I drove across the bridge at Spa, I could see up the hill that all the flashing emergency vehicle lights were on, and we thought, well, that's pretty savage and that's not ending well. But the next day, I must admit, I didn't get notice of the ceremony that was on the track. And if I go to Spa and I show you these particular pictures, here we are here. Just allow me a second or so to find these shots. Right, bang, bang. This was the photography. We're in the back here, obviously, the photographers here, and all of the F1 community is there with Antoine Hubert's mother and brother. And it was very moving, obviously, and to have so many people out there. But the real touching stuff were these shots here when Antoine's mother received all of the drivers and the team people, and there wasn't a dry eye there. And I think for her to roll up the day after the accident says a lot, and she was surrounded by a lot of love. During the race it wasn't so bad, but you knew that there was not going to be any celebration after the race purely because it just didn't warrant that. So yeah, a very memorable day. You hope you don't see that very often, and I never knew the fella. I only think I took one photo of him, and that was in the group shot of all the drivers from the start of that year. But thank you, Alona, for that question about Spa. It was certainly a day that I don't think any of us who were there will ever forget, and probably for you sitting at home watching on television. There was another minute's silence before the race, but that was a little bit different. I don't think that was quite as touching, or for me anyway, as seeing all the F1 people in the one spot out before the start of, I think that was an F2 race, was it? I'm pretty sure it was. So thanks for your question, Alona. Is it too difficult to take good shots during a rainy race, says Emre Deniz. No, I think you get a completely different set of shots. And I'll once again go to this particular photo just to show you. What we don't see with normal days racing is these tyres. You don't see the wet weather tyres. That adds a different look for a start. You get the spray, of course, and I'll just go and show you some other... no, I can't find those quickly. But yes, it's tricky because you've got to keep your camera gear dry, and I tend to not take as much kit out when it is wet because it just becomes a drama, and you really can't change lenses too easily when it's raining. Sometimes I take an umbrella, and I might, if I'm sitting in one particular spot or standing, I'll strap it to the fence and it gives me some sort of cover. Difficult, yes, but the shots are different, and it gives you great opportunities. And there's a shot that I want to get coming out of the last turn at Silverstone, and it was a rainy day 2 or 3 years ago, and I saw some beautiful shots there that I'm so cranky that I missed. So I have in my head, if it's raining at Silverstone, that's where I need to be, the last corner on the outside. Remember to use Super Chat to get your questions to the head of the queue here. Otherwise, there's every chance I'm going to miss it. And certainly for the people up the back here on Instagram, you need to come across to YouTube where all the action is. We are chock-a-block here on YouTube in the off-season, some 24 days away from action again at testing in Barcelona. Chris Campbell, if the atmosphere, air following fires in Melbourne, is it like now by time F1 show arrives, how will the impact? Okay, I get the gist of your question. Chris, in Melbourne, yes, of course, Melbourne's 3.5 hours here. That's several countries away in Europe. But I'm hearing that there's a bit of pollution around from the smoke haze, but I don't think it's going to stop any F1 racing, that's for sure. They played tennis in it the other day, so I think you'll be fine. But thank you for your question. Is the audio sync a bit off or just me? Yes, it is a bit off, and we can't fix that, can we, Adrian? Can
It seems
we?
to be going in and out. It should be resetting now, going back down.
Yes, thank you. We are working with the internet, and we are obviously subject to its pros and cons. What's the picture behind you, lower and right? Which is lower and right?
If it's there lower right, it's
Yeah.
Charles.
This is Charles.
No,
No,
it's not. It's Vettel, mate.
this one. Assuming you're talking about that one there. Let's see if I can get my finger on his head. That's Sebastian, and that's his strategist Iñaki. A picture that my son took, going back to what year? 2 years ago, and it was out the back of Parc Fermé. Sebastian had just won the race, and he was walking back, and there were no other photographers around, and that's what you ideally want. You want the drivers to be relaxed, not have to think they have to perform for the cameras, and he got a beautiful candid moment of him and Iñaki having a laugh and a hug as they walked up to, or Sebastian walked upstairs to the podium. So yeah, nice photo, and Sebastian signed that for Tyler and wrote good photo on it, I think. Yeah, Sebastian is a true gentleman and a delight to work with, I promise you. If you want to get your questions seen, jump onto Super Chat here. It's the only way of being cheeky and jumping the queue. How do you come up with the little quizzes on Instagram? Love them and always try to solve them. Little quizzes. I think by that you mean, can you name all the drivers? Well, I often put up, especially in the off-season, 10 pictures. And the recent one I did was drivers hugging. I did that one. I did another one on trainers yesterday. Can you name the trainers? No, not the trainers. Can you name the drivers that these 10 trainers look after? But typically, I'll just think, oh, hell, I haven't got a photo to put up today. What am I going to do? And I'll just search through here, and then I'll go, okay, right, bang, just comes to me. It's nothing terribly difficult, and not much thought goes into it. So thank you for all of your questions. Have the fires affected you, says Junichi Sidar. Yeah, we have had some in Western Australia, mainly before Christmas, and not too far from a house that I have on the coast at Lancelin. But it was a detour, but they weren't terribly savage fires, and no property was threatened. Certainly nothing like the problems that have existed over in the eastern states of Australia. Although there have been some big fires on the Nullarbor Plains, which is the area between Western Australia and South Australia, that caused the highway to be shut. There's one main road. Once that's shut, all sorts of strife. You can't get food through. Trucks were queued up for days on end. People on holidays couldn't get back, and it was a right royal mess. But certainly we've had, thankfully in WA, around Perth and Lancelin, where I have this holiday home, haven't been too inconvenienced. Good luck for us. That's purely what it's down to. What is a good spot for pictures at F1 testing? Okay, so I showed you this picture earlier on. I'll go back to it again because this is pretty much a given. If you go to Barcelona testing, there's some very beautiful early morning shots where you get golden light, and there's some lovely late afternoon shots, and this is one that I talk about here. Give me a second to find it. Oh, I'll show you another one as well. Yeah. Okay, so this one here gives us a chance to shoot with some lovely flowers in the foreground, and maybe I would shoot this at a slower shutter speed. Now, this was the very first time I ever shot F1 testing going back to 2017. I would certainly, no, this was actually, yes, it was 2017. I'd blur that dandelions in the front there, and I'd blur all the wire fencing and shoot at a slow shutter speed. But the other shot I do like, and it's in the late afternoon, and it's a Monty. You just go there and take this shot. Come on, boyo, where is it? Where is it? I think I might. Oh, no, here we are. This one. Lovely light. The light is behind and slightly left, so it's up here shooting across this way, as you can see by the shadow. And you get a bit of gold here in the tarmac if you set your camera to a warm temperature. You can do that internally in the camera, so you're technically not cheating, and blokes like the guys that shoot for Getty and the big agencies can't go and do tricky editing afterwards. They have to do everything they shoot inside the camera. But yeah, who doesn't love that gold look? So thank you for that question. Aidan McKay is from the UK. No, he's from Scotland. Excited, I think that means, for Miami GP. Now, I did actually see something the other day saying they've changed the track because they've had complaints from locals, and that often happens in a city when you're going to a city track. Yeah, Miami would be great. I've only been there once, and I stayed, I remember, in a pretty ordinary hotel on the flight path, and it was just a night there. I was going somewhere else. But yeah, I think Miami is fantastic for F1. The only other city I'd like to see F1 in America is Las Vegas, because I think that would be just a fantastic opportunity. But thank you for your question, Aidan. You're in the running to win a ProStar Pics digital download of your favourite photo of the 52-odd thousand I've put up over the last 3 years. Every picture of mine is on ProStar Pics. And will you be going to Miami? Indeed, if they have a race there. It's a fair hike from Australia, but I guess no worse than Canada for us. And I'm pretty sure they won't have 2 races back to back. They won't have Austin and then Miami, because that would just, I guess, cannibalize the audience. So they'll probably have them at different times a year. Harpy Sharpie, if you could drive an F1 car, which one would you drive and which track would you drive it on? Which one would I drive? I'd drive the fastest one. Why wouldn't you want to drive the fastest one? So that's a Mercedes. And which track? And why? Why would I drive it on a particular track? So many tracks. There's 21 tracks. No, I have no particular... I keep coming back to Monaco because I think the tunnel would be interesting, going in and out of that light. And you'd be doing a lot of work. There's not too many spots on the Monaco track where you can sit back and relax. But I did, in one of my recent videos, I put up a piece of vision that I got permission from the guy that did it, where he actually goes and drives an F1 car, and he's not trained to drive an F1 car. He doesn't have the solid neck muscles that all the drivers have. And he said he put his foot down on the straight, and of course he's pinned back against the seat. And when he did the heavy braking, because he thought, I'm going to really brake late and brake really hard, and he did that, and he said by the time he got to the corner, his head was in his lap, and he couldn't get his head out because of the force pushing all his head forward. And I thought that was a great thing to hear from someone who's done that, who's not trained to do it, that's what typically you have to deal with those excessive G-forces. Anyway, that's on one of my videos, and I would urge you to go and have a look at that video. Which video was that? What was it about now?
I can tell you that it was VinWiki that
VinWiki,
came from.
yes, is the vision. Anyway, it's about 2 or 3 videos ago, and it should be obvious. Maybe, Tyler, you can do some research. While I talk to Cash K Enterprises from the United States of America. What is your least favourite track to visit? Shoot, I can tell you. China, Shanghai. Soulless sort of track, unfortunately. Good facilities, fantastic facilities. But the sky is almost always grey. It's out in some industrial area which has no redeeming features whatsoever. They put and this doesn't affect me, but it will affect you if you go there. There's a cordon on race day of about 1.6 kilometres around where you can't drive anywhere near it. So you have to walk. If you are driving, perhaps you park 1.6 k's, you have to walk the other 1.6 to the track. The paddock is huge and there's no one in it. So really, and also there's hardly any spectator involvement because there's one grandstand on the loop at the far end of the track where they've just covered up the grandstand seats with signage. So I think they have a bit of trouble there, but there is a very good first turn, which I quite like. It's a turn that keeps tightening on itself. So yeah, short answer is China. But Cash K, you go into the draw to win one of my ProStar Pics pictures. So get your questions in. I'll answer a lot of them if I can. David here, excuse me. Starving F1 artist. Could you please take a look at my gallery? Well, I'm now aware of it. So thank you for that. You might want to shoot me a private message. via Instagram or put a comment on the Instagram's probably the best way to get me to have a look at it and put that link there. Otherwise, I'll have to search for it. And this will be put up later too. So if there's anything you want to see, it'll be up on YouTube for you to have a look at. Hi Kym, Belgian greetings, says Ward. Now, I did like Belgian, the race. I love the track. I just love that, because people say, what's your favourite corner? And I'd have to say Eau Rouge or Radion. No, I get so many people tell me it's one or the other. Have I? Yeah, here we go. This particular shot here. Now, this is taken from the general public area here, and as you can see, the cars go up the hill here. But this is the spot that I love. It's phenomenal. See, there's no wire above the fence here. How good's that? We can stand here, take photos of these cars, and they are absolutely pumping. And the thing is, see down here, this is some curbing, raised curbing. The noise that we hear is phenomenal, and it's not, the loudest part is not the car, it's the tyres on the curbing. And I don't know whether this picture shows, well, this cameraman here, by the way, stands the whole 4 days down there. He's a death-defying thrill seeker, this fella. But there's a little gap in this fence here. Have you seen that? Yeah, if I move my little thing up, cursor. The air that pumps through there is phenomenal when these cars come past. So that is the most amazing place to stand and take photos from, and you really have to use a very fast shutter speed. And I think if I go here, what am I? I would have to be at 4,000 or something, am I? Oh, exactly, 4 thousandths of a second at 4.5. And this is actually shooting through the fence, which I quite like because it's terrifying standing above. And you think, if they kick up a stone, that's like a bullet. That hits you in the head. You're in all sorts of strife. So going down lower somewhat divorces you from the speed and the perhaps danger involved. But the only drawback with that particular corner, and it's only been in the last 2 years, is that if you want to go and shoot there, you have to spend the whole session there. In the past, you could walk out, and can I show you maybe here? No, I can't. Yeah, in the past, you could walk out and perhaps only do 15 or 20 minutes there. Now you're stuck there for the whole session, so you are heavily invested if you want to go and have a look at action and photograph it from that particular spot. Remember, if you want to jump the queue, jump onto Super Chat, get your super question asked super quick. Which rookie from 2019 do you think will improve the most in 2020? Lando. Yeah, I think he's got a good car. It's improving. He certainly would have gleaned plenty from that first year. And wasn't he a joy to watch racing? I really have enjoyed Lando, photographing him and watching him race, and his general personality. He's just a fantastic guy, great family. And in fact, I talk about Lando's family in my next video, talking about families behind F1 drivers, well, at least 5 of them. And I'm probably going to put that up on Saturday night, Sunday night, or Monday night. If you're on Instagram, thank you for joining me. I would love to hear your comments, but you need to come to YouTube in order for me to see it, because I can see some comments coming up there, and I thank you for your interaction. But you actually get a bit more of the wide-angle scene here that the people don't see on YouTube. Which former GP that is no longer on the calendar do you miss photographing the most? Now, I've only been doing it 3 years, so I don't miss Malaysia. That was awfully hot and hard work. What else have we lost? Oh, Hockenheim. And of course, we haven't lost it yet because it's not lost until middle of this year, but I'm sad I don't get to go back there because I had the best race of my life. My short career was Hockenheim last year. I was on the last corner, and I had all of the action in front of me. 4 cars had incidents. We had Nico crash, Charles crash, Carlos came off, Lewis came off, Max spun. It was just full on. And to have that much action happen right in front of me, I couldn't believe it. Every now and then, an event would happen, something would happen, I got wrong, and I'm going to put a picture up. And then I'd go to put a picture up on Instagram straight away and think, nah, there's too much happening. I can't be distracted because next car come around the corner could end up arse over tit, upside down, whatever the case may be. So I will definitely miss that. And I also love staying in Mannheim. Met some lovely people in Mannheim, and I stayed at the Radisson Blue Hotel, which I thought was a fantastic joint. So thank you for your question. If you want to jump the queue, jump onto Super Chat and guarantee your question being answered. Is there a delay for anyone else? Yes, there's obviously.
Back now.
It's coming back. It comes and goes, says Adrian. Adrian, what have you learnt about F1 this year while I have a drink?
I've learned everything. I knew nothing going into it except that cars raced. And now I have a favourite. And I'm actually going to be rooting for probably Charles Leclerc this year. I love him as an up-and-comer. And I hope he does the best. I'm keen to get back into the podcast and really explore these as we go throughout the year.
Someone asked earlier when it comes back.
When does the podcast come back? Yes, the podcast come back when we have our... I'll probably do one after... I'll come back full screen. I'll probably do one prior to testing and after testing, assuming I go. And it looks like I'm going at this stage. Haven't got any flights booked yet, but we live in hope. And the blogs, I don't know whether I'll do a blog again this year. I might do a video blog. Just depends on how streamlined I can make this video process. I'll take another question here. Do you get invited to the car launches? James Miles asks. No, I don't, because I'm on the other side of the world and it's pointless asking me because I just won't be able to get there. I guess they would be a bit of fun to shoot, and certainly a great opportunity, obviously, to see the drivers in a relaxed atmosphere. They'll have their team clothing on, and see the cars first up. Yeah. What is your favourite? Who's your favourite character in F1? I quite like Jack from Ziggo Sports. Do you know Jack? Jack's a funny guy. Jack. Here he is here. He seems to have the best relationship with the drivers. He's a real character. Now, he used to be a dentist. How about that? There he is there, and this is his partner here, on-screen partner, Ollie, out of focus. But I like Jack. He tends to share some very good information with me. Other characters in F1. Gunther Steiner. I just think he's so much fun. He's honest. He should star again on February 28 when the Netflix Drive to Survive series lands back on your television screens via Netflix. And that has been a great innovation, hasn't it? That's something that Sean Bratches, I happen to know, will hang his hat on. Sean is the commercial manager. I'll show you a picture of Sean because he's larger than life. He was the commercial manager for F1, commercial director. Has this magnificent eyebrows. He has the eyebrows that Chase Carey should have with his moustache. That would be an amazing combination. But Sean, it was his brainchild to do Drive to Survive. And he got it up, he got it live, and I think there was some chat initially that maybe the TV networks pay such big money to air F1, it's not fair on them. Well, Drive to Survive airs nearly a year after some of that first vision was captured. So I don't think it really competes with what the TV networks do with their coverage of F1. What it does do is bring this whole new audience to Formula One that perhaps wasn't there prior, and I think the crowd numbers are up because of it, and certainly television viewing would be up because of it, because it's introduced all these new people to F1. Super Chat gets you to the top of the list. I apologise, I just don't have time to answer every one of your questions unless you jump the queue here. Thoughts on the proposed Miami Grand Prix? Somebody asked a similar question before, but yeah, I think it'd be great. What time of year will it be? Now, I don't know Miami's climate. Are you a Miami person? Is it a tropical climate? I know it's warm most of the year, but do you have a rainy season? I imagine it wouldn't be in the rainy season if you do. I think it's a great new destination. It's larger than life. It's a bit Las Vegas-y. It's a bit Monaco-y, isn't it? Lifestyles of the rich and the famous. And, of course, not too far away from Disney World, so people can make a real holiday of it. Sick Bale. Thank you for the previous answer. You obviously have been in Monza, but have you ever visited other towns in Italy? No, I have not. And I didn't like Milan that much, except for the couple of square kilometres in the centre of town, which are quite lovely, and the Duomo is beautiful. But yeah, outside, first year I stayed in a nice hotel, but in a not very nice part of town, and there was just graffiti everywhere. It's not being used to that. So no, I haven't been to many other cities in Italy. In fact, I'll tell you a story. Many years ago, I went to Italy with a girlfriend, and we decided we'd drive from Austria, and this was 35 years ago. Drove down to Genoa, couldn't find a hotel, couldn't find anywhere to park our car, and so in the afternoon, having driven down in the morning, we just drove straight back to Austria and stayed there. So that was my first and only entree into Italy until I started with F1. Thank you, Sick Bale, for your question. Which one shall I pick here? Voice is a little out of sync, says Dylan. Yes, we're backwards and forwards on that, depending on the internet, but thank you for your feedback. Any concerns about visiting China because of the lung disease outbreak? No, I think they'll have that sorted out in a few months by now. What is it? Coronavirus. There was a flight came into Perth yesterday, and I see it came from the main city that's being affected. But no, I think they'll sort that out. And if the Australian government says don't go, well, we won't go. And I think if the Australian government says don't go, then there won't be an F1 race because all the governments will be saying that. It's a bit like SARS. A lot of hype about it, but I don't think too many people were affected. Obviously, if you were, it wasn't much fun, but fingers crossed, they'll sort that out. What is the fee you pay to F1 to take pictures of the track? You don't pay any fee. You are accredited and you've got to show that you can do something for the sport, and that's what they get out of it, coverage for the sport. Thank you to Simone Pedersen from Denmark. I think that's Denmark. Any advice for taking photography to the next level? Practice, practice, practice. Watch lots of videos. That's how I've learnt. I've watched other people's videos about how to photograph motorsport. Watch some of mine. I do a video on motion blur. Just look at everybody's pictures. That's what I do. And that's why I love Instagram, because you get to see photos very quickly from a wide variety of people. It gives you the opportunity to say, all right, well, that's a great shot. How is that done? I will work towards that. And oftentimes you don't have to be a mental giant to work out how a photo was taken. What I find, Simone, is that the real challenge for me is knowing where to stand and knowing what the shot is. Once I know where to stand and what the shot is, I can get it. But I think the great photographers in Formula One have this perhaps data bank in their head of where they need to go for certain shots. They know what they need to see. And I know someone like a Vladimir Reis, who's brilliant. He looks for light changes. He looks for dark and light. He wants great contrast or interesting light, the way it's playing on a car or on a driver. And that's something I think we all need to be a little bit more aware of. And I will be guilty of it. I will stand in a spot and I will take shots and do it for 4 or 5 minutes and go, what am I doing? These are lousy. And I didn't recognize it at the time. But the more I go, the quicker I realize what's not a good shot. Anything with crap in the background, like a portable toilet or a lousy looking fence or a service vehicle or a crane, that's terrible. Ideally, what you want is a clean shot. And I'll see if I can find this to give you an example. And I can't. It will take me a second. And I refer to a shot I take in Monaco with the cars coming out of the tunnel. And I love it because it is so clean. And ideally, you want your shots to have nothing but the thing you want the focus to be on. This is too hard. I need a helper to find these photos so that I don't waste your time. Here we go. Thank you indeed for your patience. Right, this is the shot here. The reason I like that is because it's so clean. Your car is in light, whereas you can see where the shadow runs across the track there. It's just come out of the darkness into the light, so it's perfectly lit. You've got this lovely row of lights here. You've got a reflection on the right-hand side of this shot where there's some open concrete holes that look out towards sea. To me, that is a really pretty looking shot, and it's shot very low because the difference between taking this shot above the fence and through the fence is dramatic. And look, that's stuff that you learn as you go along, and you see guys lying down on the ground, and you think, That doesn't look very comfortable, but what's the shot like? And you have a look at it, oh, well, that's why he's lying on the ground. Because a lot of us, when we start, and everybody starts in Formula One, there's no one who walks in who's an expert. We all start from the same level, or in motorsport anyway. The easy shot is standing up, holding the camera, being comfortable. And everyone tries that. And then you think, well, hang on a second, how do you take it to the next level? How do you do something interesting? Yes, you start panning and you start doing slow shutter speed shots, or you go to something like that layover 24mm lens, which is a snoot thing, so you can get it perhaps in a smaller gap, you can get it into someone's shoe, and you start doing photography that's challenging but interesting. Super Chat gets you to the top of the queue here, otherwise I am missing about 90% of your questions, and I do thank you for staying up late in Europe and for, what are we now, 6:15 in Perth. We've got another 15 minutes and then we'll let you get back to whatever you were doing, says Emiliano Poop. Do you know Will Buxton? I do know Will, and he is a valuable source of information for me and a lovely guy and very talented. I like the fact that he can walk down a paddock and do a 30-minute show and speak from no real notes. That is quite amazing. So, yeah, a funny guy, Will, and I always like the fact that I can go to him and say, hey, who's that person? What does this person do? What's happening with that sort of thing. And yes, very knowledgeable man. Goes out with one of the Racing Point girls too. Do you have a mentor who's helped you with F1 photography, says SJexD? Yes, I have a number of people. Mark Sutton has been very helpful to me. Mark employed me in my first year. He's he's long been involved in F1, over 20 years, done 500 races, is it? Yeah, it's a lot. Mark Thompson from Getty Images has been invaluable. Clive Mason has also given me some tips. Andy Hone, a brilliant photographer working for LAT, is very good. Yeah, off the top of my head, those guys I really look up to, and I thank for the advice they've given me, because there's no need for them to tell me what I should be doing or how to improve my shots. And I do remember once in Bahrain, it was funny because we shoot these lovely shots in the Bahrain paddock at night with all the lovely lights from the trees. And I was standing in one particular spot, and then Mark Thompson, grabs me on my shoulder and just pulls me across and says, "The shot's here, mate, the shot's here." I thought, thanks. That was in my very first year, and I'll show you this sort of thing here, which I quite love. There you go. See those lovely lights in the background? You can't beat that. That's quite lovely. And then there's a matter of how do you shoot that and use those lights to bring your shot to life. But this is the media pen where all the drivers come after quali and after the race. They're compelled to stand in there and ask questions from all the TV crews. And obviously the lower the f-stop, the more out of focus the foreground and background are, and that's where those lights can really look lovely, and then you get these lovely rim lighting here on Lando's face. Another question. Do we have another question? Yes, we do. Anything on Super Chat? Thank you, Simone. You were the last one from Denmark. I've never been there. Love your channel. Very well polished content for a small sub count. Yes, we've got to get it up. We need more viewers on YouTube. But then again, I've only really been pushing it for 4 months. And that was only at the insistence of my son Tyler sitting on the floor down here, that you have to get into YouTube. And I thought, what a waste of time that is. But apparently I was wrong, because look at this. What great interaction this is, to be able to sit here in Perth, Western Australia, and talk to all of you people via the internet. Alona, which of the new races do you most look forward to? Well, there's only 2, Alona, isn't there? And they are Vietnam and Holland. Look, I think Holland, because I'm not sure what the crowds will be like in Vietnam, but I know it'll be chock-a-block in Holland and very hard to get into and out of the track. So I've decided to stay at a hotel. There's a media shuttle bus, so we just get on the shuttle bus and it drops you at our front door, which is great. But I think there'll be a huge turnout of orange. I'm looking forward to seeing how that banking works on that particular turn, and the fact that everybody's on the same level, the photographers, because no one's shot that, or the new layout of Zandvoort anyway. And also I like the fact that it's in the sand belt, because the house I have in Lanselen, which is on the coast here, is a sand belt town. It's just full of sand with huge sand dunes. So Alona, that's my answer to you. I'm going to say your race in Holland, and maybe I'll get to meet you, and perhaps I'll have a dinner there and we'll all talk about Formula One. Let's see Tyler. Enoch. Do you know Enoch? It's not a mate of yours. Come on, Tyler, put your head in.
It's just me. I'm making lots of
Come on.
accounts.
Yeah. Let's see Tyler, my eldest of two. And he's... Stand up a bit. Right, yeah.
While I am here, it's worth asking about doing the podcast live. Instead of pre-recording it, would it be better to do a similar situation where Adrian and Kym might sit in this studio and record it live and field questions?
Do you want to
for
take the
second
seat?
half?
Do you want to sit here?
It's a good question, though.
It is.
a good question.
Yeah, okay, let's see what people
interested in
say. Podcasts. Ask it again, Adrian.
So would people be interested in seeing me and Kym do the podcast live? Well, obviously we'll still push it to all the platforms we do, but such as Kym's sitting here now, have me and him before race and after each race do it live.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, well, let's see after the delay what people say about that. But certainly, I've got to say it's easier when two people do a podcast, because you don't have to talk solidly for all that time. Although we do it, of course, we do it in our audio studio, but yes, video is a possibility. Is your hotel in Zandvoort? If not, good luck getting into Zandvoort. There's just 2 access roads. Yeah, no, my hotel is out near the airport, but there is a media shuttle bus, and I'm sure they'll have a media lane. Let's just hope it doesn't turn out to be anything like the France race of a couple of years ago, because that first year was an absolute nightmare, 3 to 6 hours to get there and back. But the second year was a dream, because the organisers, and well done to Pierre and Eric Bouillet for their efforts, they sorted out the problem and it was fantastic. George Racing, what have you got to say, George? Would you consider micro 4/3 35mm film? No. I would have no idea what to do with that. But George, it sounds like you might be au fait with it and perhaps even pretty good at using it. So, I don't know. Film. God, film's a nightmare. I don't think that would work. So I think what works for me is immediacy, in terms of me taking a photo in the paddock of Lando Norris walking in, high-fiving Daniel Kvyat, say. Me being able to get that picture up within 4 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on the internet. That works for me. I find that any of my car photos, no, not any, most of my car photos don't have the same impact with an Instagram audience as a photo of a driver doing something interesting and a story behind that. So I don't think I'll be at any stage going to film. I think there's a degree of difficulty that's high enough as it is without complicating it with that. But George, you are in the running to win a picture from prostarpics.com, and we'll do that in 7 minutes' time, because then it's time to go and have breakfast in Australia.
People seem to love the idea of a live podcast.
Do they?
Yeah, plenty of
Overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah. They love the interaction, being able to ask questions and find out more about the things they want to hear.
Okay. Right.
That's a good idea.
So that's something we'll work on for this year.
A lot of comments. Adrian should do this for nothing too, Kym. Why doesn't Adrian do it for nothing? So that's
I'm saying
great.
Adrian should be paid double.
Well, perhaps they'll even out and you just get paid what you normally get paid.
Let's go with that.
Are you interested in different sports? I actually applied to do the Olympics this year, but missed out. But still, if you don't apply, you've got no chance, do you? So fingers crossed that I'll find some other things to do. But I do like the idea of international sports, because I could go and photograph Australian rules football if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I've got my teeth into Formula One, and I think I've got a reasonable understanding of the people involved, and I think that helps. What I really want to do is do some, I'd love to spend half a day or a day with Gunther Steiner and follow him round and do a video at the end of that about what he's like, and use photos obviously to back it up. But I do think Gunther is a funny character. Are you going to Zandvoort? Yes, I am going to Zandvoort. Yes, make podcast video. Great idea, says Nuke MTV. David Bracken, how many people in your team that are making today possible? 3. Well, yeah, 3 in here at 4 a.m. to probably finish here about 6:45. Tyler Illman, Adrian Vinci, who's an Italian. He would have to be a Ferrari fan. You'd have to be a Ferrari fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles is the driver I support, so
He's a great young man, Charles. So 3 people doing this largely for the love of it. And if you want to get your question to the head of the queue like George did, pop onto Super Chat and make sure your question is seen, because I don't see all of them. When you find a good place to take photos from, do you share it with other photographers? Well, I typically don't run around and say, go and stand over there. That's a good spot. But it's impossible not to see someone taking a photo where they're standing. And as I walk around the track during a race or a practice session, there are photographers every 20 metres. Although I was surprised during that Hockenheim race when I was probably one of only 2 photographers on that final turn, and all the action happened in front of me. There was probably other photographers, 100 metres away, 200 metres away, who could have got the action with a long lens and a different shot, but I pretty much had that final 2 turns all to myself in Hockenheim, in Deutschland. I heard all the Dutch fans wanted to take bicycles to the Dutch GP, but the Germans took them all. There will also be a special service road for the teams and staff. Forza Stroll, says Hans Klock. Hans Klock, where are you from? What nationality is Hans from? Quite a sharp comment there. And Forza Stroll, so you like Mr. Stroll. I did see Lance Stroll this year, the happiest I've ever seen him, and I will share this picture with you. Stroll, German. Let's see how quick I can find this. There he is. That's not bad. My keywording works, and when you go onto ProStar Pics, you can actually press a button. Not a press button. You can search on any photo by name. So you can put in Stroll, German, and you get this rather interesting series of pics of Lance after he'd finished 4th. He very much looked like he could have got 3rd at that stage, but it was just lovely to see him come out and be so happy. And then you've got, to balance that, Lewis coming out, having had a horror race, one of his shockers, on a weekend where Mercedes had spent an absolute fortune. I think it was 10 million euros to sponsor that race, and neither of their drivers ended up on the podium. So you've got the happy and the sad. Look at that, Lance Stroll. And this is something interesting. See here, I often see this, and I will zoom in on it for you. See this line down here? That's because he's had his balaclava and helmet on, and that's the cable that runs out of his earphones down to the cable, the plug jack. And it just indents itself into his face. Final couple of questions. If you want them to be your questions, jump onto Super Chat, and I'll take one more Super Chat question and maybe one other here from Hans is not German. What else shall I go through here? What are your thoughts on Lando, Kym? Great guy. Lots of fun. It's broken. It's broken. Hey, can you read that one? Can you read Jamie Jensen's comment for us, please, Adrian?
I
Can I have a crack at that?
No. I think
this is obviously Dutch because it's not too far off German. Ja, allemaal mensagers die TV uitzetten zodra Verstappen crashed. Something about Verstappen crashed.
I got one thing in there, Verstappen.
Yeah, well, I got crashed. And ja is yes in German, so I guess it's probably that. Do you have any sponsors? Yes, Messages on Hold Australia and Canity.com. Canity is online training, smart training for savvy businesses, and it's all in English, and you can go there, Canity.com. And one final question before I go to a last. Who wants to have the last Super Chat question, because you have a chance of winning a picture from the ProStar Pics library if you get in quickly. Okay.
Yeah, we're winding up towards the end of the stream now, so if you do have any final questions, Super Chat's the best way to go, and if you do just want to enter for that chance to win a ProStar picture download.
And we have an interesting wheel, a spinning wheel. We've done it digitally, so it's quite exciting. Okay, what's this one? Is it true that many potential young drivers don't make it to F1 because of lack of sponsors? Absolutely true. Yeah, you don't have to be the best driver. You have to be a good driver with money behind you. It's not a cheap game, this. It's hellishly expensive. And in the early years of a driver, obviously their parents have to stump up some of this money and a whole lot of time. And then someone like a Charles managed to get Nicholas Todd involved, and Nicholas sponsored him. Now, normally Nicholas as a manager might go out and get sponsors to stump up the money, but I think he personally invested in Charles, which was a bold move, but when you look at it now, it was a very good move because he's now seeing a return on his investment, I have no doubt. Okay, our final question today, and Kaka Silva from, well, yeah, what's knock? Anyway, do you think we can see women on F1? No, I don't think so. I don't think they're strong enough. And that's what the guys tell me that work it. But I do photograph 2 women who race, and one is this lovely lady, Tatiana Calderon. I've seen her at a few races, and I've also shot... No, I've forgotten her name now. It'll come to me, but no, I just don't think they have... It's a very powerful sport. You've got to, as we already discussed earlier on about the forces on your neck, and you've got to be a tremendously strong person to be able to get away with that sport. So my guess is no, but hey, if it turns out, great, because that female driver, that first female driver will get huge marketing exposure. There's no doubt. And finally, Alona, do you always shoot the track walk 2 spot places? Do you always... Yeah, I normally do the track walk because I think it's a great opportunity to get uncluttered shots of drivers, and you can spend a little bit of time with them. Sometimes I'll walk maybe 800 metres. Thank you, Tyler. 800 metres with a driver and get a variety of shots. And you don't get that in the paddock because oftentimes they might only walk 100 metres and they'll do it over 15 seconds perhaps, and then you're done. So, Alona, thank you for your question. 2 spot places, and I'm not quite sure what that meant. If you want to put a quick clarification. Oh, Jamie Chadwick is the other one, yes. To spot places, yes. Now I understand what you're saying. More so, I do the track walks to see where it's to get shots of drivers. But yes, I know what you're saying, and I think definitely for Zandvoort and Vietnam, I'll have to walk the track. In Vietnam, I'm there a couple of days early, which is great. And this is Jamie here. I shot her doing a function for Williams and Acronis, a good sponsor. So thank you, everybody. Can you put up your wheel now and we find a winner? I'll go back to me. Yes,
you know how to make it pop up? Or I'll come over and I'll fix it.
Yeah. Come put your head in shot and show us your Doctor Who T-shirt, please. And I do thank you for hanging. If you started with us at 5 a.m. Perth time and you're still here at 6:30 a.m., thumbs up to you. Could you please put a note here and tell me, did you watch from the start?
There we go. I'll tap on the left and I'll spin it from behind the screen.
Thank you, Adrian. This is a very small studio, barely big enough for 3 of us and all this camera kit. And you've got to understand, we have a lot of stuff, and thank you to those Instagram people. We have a lot of stuff in here, and there's not much room to move. Rightio. So can we spin this wheel?
We'll spin it. So everyone who gave Super Chat today, every $1 you gave is an entry.
You tell me when to spin it. Now?
3, 2, 1.
Good.
Lining up somewhat. Is it spinning?
Okay. Who's that say?
Who did we end on?
I can't read that.
Who? I can't see from this end.
What? I cannot tell you. It's tiny.
I'll tell you once it comes up on the delay.
We've got a winner.
We do have a winner, and it's a... So what is it, Kym?
They're getting a ProStar pick download of the picture of their choice. What is it?
Tambuli.
Tambuli. Tambule.
Tambuli.
Thank you. I hope you're still with us. And if you're not, hopefully a friend of yours will say, hey, you won. Please contact me.
No, it's not.
No?
It's lag.
It's lag?
It's lag.
It's
Hang on. So
there we go.
It's Alona.
Yeah, that's all.
Sorry, Tambuli. Hope you're not watching and you haven't been disappointed now. Alona, you've won a free download from Holland. So you can contact me, PM me, and I'll send you a promo code to go to prostarpics.com where you can download your picture. So thank you very much for your attention. It's been a real thrill to talk to you, and thank you for your questions from wherever you are in the world. And Alex Ratledge said, damn it, because he asked a question and did want to win that, didn't you, Alex? But still, it perhaps will bring you back next time. So thank you, and au revoir.